Good morning, everybody. What made me click on this story was the headline for it on CNN's front page. Now, something about it was fishy. I mean, it smelled bad, like fish that had been left out in the sun for 3 days in midsummer. Let's start off though with this embedded video. It starts off with this woman walking across the street, and they tell her sad story about how she's attempted to commit suicide for 4 times. Let's get on with the story. In Japan, more people died from suicide last month than from COVID in all of 2020. And women have been impacted most. My God, what could possibly be wrong about this headline? Maybe the fact that it doesn't say that women have committed more suicide than men in Japan? It just implies that, well, they might not have died in bigger numbers, they've just been impacted on it. And the lead couple of sentences kind of confirm it. Let's read it. Oh, but before we start with the story, it was written by 3 women. Selena Line, Rebecca Wright, and Yoka Wakasuki. Erika Kobayashi has tried to kill herself 4 times. She just wasn't very good at it. Now 43, Kobayashi has written books on her mental health struggles and has a steady job at an NGO. Alright, let's take a look now at the stats. Japan recorded over 21,000 suicides in October. You notice that in the stats it doesn't break down men versus women. In fact, nowhere in this story does it break down the stats, the suicide stats of men versus women. But it does want to tell you about how women have it worse. Let's go on just a little bit more. COVID's toll on women. Japan has long struggled with one of the highest suicide rates in the world, according to the World Health Organization. In 2016, Japan had a suicide mortality rate of 18.5 per 100,000 people, second only to South Korea. Well, you would think that if it was second to South Korea, that they should have based the story in South Korea because, well, Japan's suicide rate is 18.5 per 100,000 people. In South Korea, the women's suicide rate is 15 per 100,000 people. So it's 3.5 percentage points lower. So that isn't that much difference. But for men, men's suicide in Korea at a rate of 32.5 per 100,000. Twice what women's suicide rate is. Maybe that's why they wanted to choose Japan. You see, in the United States, women's suicide at a rate of about 6.1 per 100K. Men's suicide rate at the rate of 21.4. So, better than 3 times as men commit suicide than women. Yet somehow it impacts women more. Let's go on to another news source. From CBS News. Suicide claimed more Japanese lives in October than 10 months of COVID. And look, they show a picture of a woman all depressed and wanting to commit suicide. Naturally, this article was also written by a woman, Lucy Kraft. And if we go down to the 3rd paragraph, women who are primarily responsible for childcare have borne the brunt of pandemic-induced job losses and insecurity. She just can't help bringing up women with a problem that is predominantly male in origin. Okay, let's take a look at one last news source. Nippon.com, also a woman. Yes, this has got to be the year of the woman, doesn't it? October saw a rapid increase in suicides in Japan. I think this had to be written by a woman too. You know why? Well, let's go on. I'll show you. Here, it shows suicides by month in 2019 versus 2020. 2020 has definitely pulled ahead of 2019 for suicides. But here's why I think that this was put together by a woman. Male and female suicides by month. If you look at it, why, it seems to go up much sharper for women than it does men. That's only if you don't look at the charts carefully. You see, for women, it starts at 200 and goes up to 800. For men, it starts at 1,000 and goes up to 1,400. Women never get to man's low baseline. Take a look how it's worded. There was a 21.3% increase in suicides by men in October to 1,302, and an 82.6% increase in suicides by women to 851. Tokyo had the largest number by prefecture with 255. So if you look at the stats and the raw numbers, suicides are predominantly a male problem. In any country of the world, you want to look at the amount of successful suicides are done by men. The total amount of suicide attempts for every country I've looked at is women. Women just aren't very good at it. Come on, girls, you need to show a little bit more commitment.